My name is Caroline Poynton. I'm going to have to record because that's your main mood. What a liar. Where's King Charles? She won't come on the programme to talk to her bank because she's a fucking corrupted terrorist liar. And King Charles is involved in everything. Where is he? Why is he IDP?
From College Green down in Westminster.
Where's Sadiq Khan IDP? Where's David Lammy IDP? Look his arm around IDP. Why is it just Shimei mood? Because she's put everybody in a bastard mood.
Let's talk to Robert Jendrick, Shadow Justice Secretary, who joins us now from College Green down in Westminster. Robert, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for being here. It's a very sad day, obviously, but in some ways people are saying to me this morning, an inevitable day, given the way that this country has been going in the past recent few months and maybe the last 2 years since the October 7th attacks in Israel, because this government,
not just in the last 2 years, but in the last 20 years, mate.
The previous government allowed these protests to go ahead without any kind of fear of
because of King Charles.
Reprehensible
Why would we allow
punishment of
that?
any kind, without any fear of being arrested for chanting ghastly anti-Semitic chants.
Well, look, these were gut-wrenching attacks
Something
by
happened
this
to King Charles.
absolutely
Do we need to
vile
put a search warrant out for
in
King
Manchester.
Charles?
And my heart goes out to the victims, their families, and the community in North Manchester, as well as British Jews across the country who today will be feeling lonely and fearful. And we've got to say to our fellow British citizens, British Jews, that they are not alone, that we're going to stand with them. But you're right to say it's not just about fine words, it's about action. We've got to root out anti-Semitism and extremism. And let's be frank, Islamist extremism wherever we see it. And that has been allowed to grow and grow among us in recent years, particularly after October the 7th. As that means
this is
God
fishing down like we're going to understand whatever.
This
is God again, like rock and tell Turkey fucking funded the next day to death.
Make sure that you can't shout jihad in London.
Yeah, you should be able to shout that. It's offensive.
People are here on visas who are
it's offensive. They're offending people, but they're not being arrested though, are they, by the Fort Police?
Never to return. And that each and every one of our institutions, universities,
universities, they're the ones that are all the teachers and the pedo services.
And extremism actually take action now, root it out.
Well, we all dress like the teachers and the pedo services, dress social services, dress the social worker dresses.
Are quite happy to be seen on social media, making the sign of the slit throat at Palestinian protests, and yet they still work in the NHS. We've got Siobhan on the move this morning.
And now she's the fucking Home Secretary and she's allowed to go protest.
To ban the Palestine Action protest this weekend. Well, how is she powerless? She's the Home Secretary.
She got powers, mate. Where's the king then? Well, if she hasn't got power, then she needs to get out. Where's fucking David Bastard Lammy and Sadiq Khan then? Sadiq Khan's got the power and so has David Lammy. And her together, and where's the king?
And look, these protests
that
are planned for this weekend. I would just send this message to the people who are organising them. For goodness sake,
the people that are organising them, the king, King Charles.
Yeah.
Grieve this weekend without fear or worry. Be normal human beings and just think about your fellow
I don't want another Palestine rally this weekend. It shouldn't be allowed this weekend. It should be banned this weekend. Let's give the country some peace. Let's give everybody some peace this weekend.
Had just
I was going to say this weekend, can the country not have some peace from jihadis? Jihad.
I haven't heard from Keir Starmer today talking about these awful people attacking the police like he does any time it happens when there's a march that he doesn't agree with. Where's Keir Starmer today?
Shouldn't have been allowed in the country 20 years ago in the fucking first place. 20 years ago his parents came. Yeah, that was on the Tony Blair wave, wasn't it? Here we go.
They should have stayed at home. It was totally disrespectful. And in London, you saw it straying into violence and disorder. Dozens of arrests being made by the Metropolitan Police. That's a total disgrace. Yes, all politicians, including the Prime Minister, should call those individuals out. And the point you made a moment ago about that doctor, that really does need
where's the
to be
banners from the
restated.
police? Where's all the fucking
Doctor
police
last
equipment?
week where the
Where's them
NHS
shields and
allowed
all that
her
the
to
police
continue
wear
to
when
practice,
they want to beat up the
despite the
protest
fact
from the
that
Patriots?
she had said that the Royal Free Hospital
Where's
of
all that
Poynton
then?
was a cesspit
Yeah, because
for
this is a
Jewish
cesspit for the
supremacy.
King Charles.
And she had said that she
Google
refuses to
AI
condemn Hamas
refused
for the
to
October
answer
the
that
7th
question. They keep
attacks.
saying there's
Well,
no
that woman
evidence. Well,
should
there
be
is
sacked
evidence
on
now
the
that King
spot.
Charles
No questions
is
asked. And the fact that
frauded,
both senior
sinned,
leaders in the
treasoned.
NHS
It's in the
chose
Bible.
to
It's a
turn a blind
treason
eye
in the
to that.
fucking
I mean,
country.
that's
He's done
shameful.
treason.
That really is shameful.
Frauded the
Every
country.
institution in our
Shame.
country
He
needs to
should
step
be
up now
done and
and
put
take a
in
long,
jail.
hard look in the mirror about how they are treating these individuals, these extremists in our midst.
And at the end of the day, Robert, we have got this problem in this country because I'm afraid an awful lot of people from the Middle East are now living here.
Is
And
the
these are
Labour
people
government
who have perpetrated an awful lot of
organisation
this,
called the terrorist
crime against the police. I
organisation.
know there are left-wing
Labour-
agitators as well who are homegrown.
Labour
But there's
terrorist
an awful lot of people who are
organisation.
pro-Palestine on these marches who are from countries in the Middle East who have now come to live here and who are basically fighting out their own internecine wars on the streets of Great Britain.
They do realise when people kill the Jews,
God,
the Bible, God punishes them people that do that.
As well as calls of support for terror.
Well, he should do, yeah.
Become a widespread phenomenon in the streets of London, in
Well, he
cities
kill
across
anyone.
Britain, and on its campuses. He's absolutely right.
And that's all the colleges and that. They're the teachers, the colleges. So who's the help? Who's the fucking education
who are posing
education
a very
department?
serious risk to the public. Look at almost all the incidents that have happened, the terrorist incidents over the last 25 years, almost all of them have been Islamist extremists. Look at the caseload of our security service. It's 80% Islamist extremism. Let's have an honest debate about what's going on and then take action. Make sure the Home Office programmes like Prevent, which are supposed to be bearing down on this, are as robust as possible. Deport the people that we can who have these anti-British sentiments, get them out of our country. Make sure the police are arresting people who are valorising Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, Palestine action on the streets of this country. That is what we've got to ensure. And yes, when it comes to immigration, we should be honest that we have imported people into our country over the last 25 years, many of whom are from countries that have frankly medieval attitudes. Attitudes towards women and girls, and yes, where it is prevalent, anti-Semitism. And that is wrong. We've got to therefore have a different immigration system that puts the safety of the British public, whether it's British Jews or anyone else, first, second, and last.
Yeah, absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. Robert Jenrick, thank you very much indeed. Shadow Justice Secretary, speaking there from College Green in Westminster.
93 is longer than that. Well, now it's gone to 25 years, gone from 20 years to 25 years, 30 years. King Charles has been a Muslim for. 30 years that King Charles has changed his religion. Well, it's probably like that. The things don't take effect straight away, do they?
How are you?
Like women's rights. Rights for women, you know. I mean, it came in, not passed in court, but all in all, think about it, we didn't really get to start to see women's rights becoming in play into proper real action. You know, you didn't really start to, you still don't see it properly now, and you know, how many years ago we're getting the women's rights made? Ago, you know, 1948 or something, innit? Something like that. Alright. Well, we never got to see really women's rights, I'm going to say, play in action. Start to play in action till about middle 90s. Maybe the 90s, about 90s, the 90s. To the middle 90s. To the early, yeah, within that gap, within that 10-year period from the 90s to about early 2000s. Is when we started to see that women's rights started to come into play into the real world. When you can see it in real time being played, like in things being played out in real time world. Yeah, it didn't really. That's what I mean. The women's rights, because in the 80s, although the women's rights had been, you know, approved or whatever, 30 years before then, or 20 years before then, 30 years before I was born, we didn't see that being played out as much in the 80s. Until, I'm going to say, roughly about, well, probably about the early 90s, about middle 90s to early 90s is when it started to come into action a bit. And then we've obviously seen it in the 2000s, women's rights coming into more play. So yeah, they started this thing about this Muslim thing 30 years ago, I reckon. And now we're just seeing it. I mean, don't forget, 30 years ago, we wouldn't have seen it in action. It was only a new thing back then, so no, that's what I'm saying, we wouldn't have seen it. I'm going to say about 40 years, actually. 35, nearly 40 years, because I'm 43. So I'm trying to go off my age of when, I mean, there were Muslims in my school, Pakistani Muslim people in my school when I was a kid, most primary school and that. When I went to Levenshulme High School, it was full of them. Absolutely full of Muslim people in the school. Which is an all-girls school, Levenshulme, but it was full of Muslim people then. So, it had tripled from me leaving primary school to me going to high school. Tripled the amount of Muslims that were in the country. There was a couple in the class when I was in primary school, but when I went to high school, I was like the odd person out, because I was the only English girl, mainly. In my life, I've been literally the only English girl. Everywhere I go to work or anywhere, I'm literally the only English girl. And they're all me lying now, yeah, well, yeah. Went to school, that's why I went to school, because I was not with anybody that was English mainly. There was a few English people, but not very many. And some of the English ones that were there, they're probably the fucking Free Palestine bitches now. For fuck's sake, the stupid bastards there, they got radicalised. That's why I went to school, because I didn't want to get radicalised. Well, thank you very much for this rant. I'm sick of this country. Tell you what, can I not be a refugee and go to fucking Lanzarote? We're not safe in my own country. Thank you from Caroline Poynton in Bury, Manchester. Not far from Crumpsall, that's where I was born.